Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is a new class, and this class is psychology. And of course, we'll be doing the introduction to psychology. This is psychology class, so we'll be focusing on, because of the purposes of this class, because of the purposes of your program, we are not able to do psychology is not your major, but you'll be getting a foundation in psychology that will enable you to understand your way around and understand your way with people and understand people better. Right? You're getting sociology, and I might well have sociology 2 or 3 as optional, and I might have psychology 3 as optional. But you're getting psychology now, the introduction to psychology, and you have got the introduction to sociology, and these are two social sciences that have to deal with behavior. You would have noticed that sociology starts from without, how it has to do with how the environment affects people. And psychology begins from within, and we shall see what is it that is going on within you that causes you to display the behavior you do. So, now let us pause a prayer. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for the students and participants in this course. I commit them to you, and I commit myself to you. I commit the systems to you that you have given us to make this course possible. In your precious name I pray, amen. Psychology has advanced by leaps and bounds over its approximately 100-year lifespan and is now an established science. Yet there remains some confusion over what the field is all about. I wouldn't even say confusion. I would say also, or maybe add to it, I would add to that ignorance. Confusion among those who have an idea of psychology, but ignorance among those who don't know psychology. They can't spell it, and they never heard the word, or maybe they can call it, but that's it. We therefore begin with an overview of the varied domain of psychology and how it relates to the subject matter of other disciplines. Or they relate, this discipline, it is a discipline. Every field of study is a discipline. So this is a field of study. It is a discipline. It is called a discipline. Now this discipline interlocks with other disciplines. Sociology is about every discipline. All right. Now, a good definition of psychology has to capture an enormous realm, and it is likely that no two psychologists will give the exact same definition. Here is one that covers the essentials. Psychology is a scientific study of the overt and covert behavior of living organisms, with emphasis on animals and especially humans. Here is one that we can work with. Of course, no two psychologists give the same meaning or definition. And as with most definitions that you encounter as a student, each element requires some explanation. To begin with, scientific means that psychologists go about their studies in an orderly and systematic way with careful attention to gathering objective evidence that others can evaluate for themselves, even though understanding and evaluating the evidence sometimes requires advanced training. Not sometimes. To evaluate it, you being, you have only done, say, 13 weeks of study and reading and listening and study. I said, you can't evaluate it. You're not in a position to do it, evaluate. And I am not, it is not my major. I've studied psychology at different levels and counseling and at different institutions. I've studied it at Northern Caribbean University. I've studied it at Midland Bible Institute and so on. And I've studied some psychology at VTDI, Vocational Training, VT Development Institute, and so on. But I don't have a PhD or a master's degree in psychology. But I have enough background in it to be able to teach the introduction in it. So I would not even set out to do an evaluation. In turn, objective evidence is in itself a broad term, and later in the chapter we have much to say about objectivity and the methods psychologists use in conducting scientific research. For now, note that psychologists, like other scientists, are inherently skeptical. They want proof and are disinclined to take much for granted. For example, when we noted that similarity of interests and attitudes helps in forming and maintaining relationships, we base that conclusion on research discussion. A research discussed, and we shall come to that. It is the right and so on. A research that was discussed by experts, shared by experts. Next, the word behavior can mean a host of things. In the most general sense, behavior is literally anything an organism does. Today you woke up, perhaps yawned and stretched, got up, got dressed, and started your day. Got up, got dressed, no shower. Over the course of the day, you will probably attend classes, listen to and talk with other people, work, play, perhaps laugh or cry. At the end of the day, you will sleep. Then you will get up and start another cycle. Everything you do along the way, including sleeping, is behavior. Everything you do. You look, whatever. These are examples of overt behavior. And remember, behavior is overt and covert. Behavior that can be readily observed by someone else, or at least detected by psychological measuring instruments. But there's more. You also think about this or that while you go about your day. You might not say anything. You experience emotions such as anger, fear, joy, and sadness. You feel hungry and thirsty at times, and ideally you learn some of the things in your classes. Perhaps you have stirrings of desire for accomplishment and success, friendship, even revenge. Perhaps you worry about problems and seek ways to cope with them. While you sleep, you also dream. These are examples of covert behavior. Behavior that cannot be directly observed or measured. and must be inferred from overt behavior. So you notice behavior is assessed in two different domains: covert behavior and overt behavior. It is difficult to assess covert behavior. What the professor is saying here, one would have to use the overt behavior, the overt, to assess the covert, to explain the covert, and so on. Even though it is the covert, oftentimes dictate to the overt. They're connected. The covert will be that you hate Tom. You hate him for whatever reason. You hate him. No, the covert, that is covert. Tom might not know or even suspect that you hate him. But because of that hate, and it builds up, and you might find that you use a club and club him and kill him. No one was able to detect the covert behavior of hate or hatred. But we can assess the overt behavior of murder, killing Tom. And then experts are going to want to trace it to something. Nearly all of modern psychology is intensely concerned with both kinds of behavior. Behavior that can be observed directly and behavior that must be inferred. So you infer, you arrive at it by inferences, you draw an inference. This was not always the case, however, as we see later in the chapter when we survey psychology's past or lifespan. Factors that influence behavior are many and varied. The most important of them is the functioning of the brain, an organ that is immensely complex in humans. The human brain is made up of many billions of intricately interconnected cells of dozens of different kinds, performing different functions that are constantly exchanging messages via electrical and chemical activity. Electrical is activity takes place within. Is such a thing? Yes, within the body. So many things. The human brain is made up of many billions of intricately interconnected cells of dozens. That's the brain, of dozens of different kinds, performing different functions that are constantly exchanging messages via electrical and chemical activity. But the brain would be useless without the help it gets from the other parts of the body. It would not know anything about the environment without the specialized cells of the sense organs, which are sensitive to light, sound, odors, pressure, and motion. It would not even know hunger or thirst without signals provided by the bloodstream and some of the internal organs. It would not produce emotions without the aid of various chemicals in the brain and elsewhere in the body. You notice the focus here is not on society and the impact of society and people, and the impact of people's attitudes and actions and behaviors on society. The emphasis here is on the body, the animal itself. Humans are regarded as animals. We are categorized as animals by biologists. We're the highest group. Humans are at the highest level. And that is something else. I don't want to go into evolution, the theory of evolution, or the law of evolution. Because evolution is so encompassing. It is not yet a law. But there are certain things, aspects of it that could be could be categorized as law, in that they repeat themselves all the time. They don't change, and they are proven. There are aspects of the theory though that are not yet proven and can be, or will not be proven. And I'm speaking specifically of the highest form, the Homo sapien, that is a descendant of monkeys. And they need to explain now that gap between the monkey and Homo sapien. And a particular feature that is important, the tail, that humans do not have, but monkeys do have. How did humans get rid of the tail? Things like that. But psychology studies all interrelationships between the brain and the rest of the body, along with where they come from. It investigates heredity, psychology. And under sociology, we did look at heredity, or we did look at nurture and nature. Nature has to do with heredity, right? The extent to which our conduct is governed by tendencies handed down to us from the countless new generations of forebears from whom we are descended, and it investigates how these tendencies evolved and were handed down. Psychology also examines the influence of environment, including the ways we learn from our experiences, remember them, and apply them. In particular, it looks at how the actions of other people affect our behavior and how our actions affect their behavior. You notice the interconnection with psychology and sociology. Here is where they connect now. Effects that turn out to be much more significant and far-reaching than you might suspect. Just as humans and members of our species are not simple creatures, devising scientific ways to study them in all their diversity is not a simple task. Psychologists cannot rely on unverifiable propositions about behavior, no matter how brilliant the reasoning. As noted earlier, psychology is skeptical and demands proof that everyone can see based on carefully controlled experiments and on observations made with the greatest possible precision and objectivity, which requires freedom from biases or preconceived ideas of any kind. Psychology also cannot rely on metaphysical explanations based on faith and religious interpretations. This is not to say that psychologists and other scientists regard their conclusions as somehow superior to those based on philosophical or religious understanding. Science is simply a different way of thinking about behavior and attempting to explain it with a distinct set of rules. Without a scientific approach, it is difficult to reach valid conclusions about human behavior. The everyday observer is almost bound to commit mistakes of observation and interpretation and to make judgment based on faulty or insufficient evidence. We're going to look at the mission of psychology briefly. The field of psychology has two primary missions. One, to understand behavior in all its forms. And two, to predict its course. Indeed, understanding and predicting are goals of our sciences. Chemists have sought from the earliest times to understand reactions among elements and molecules, for example, to predict what will happen when a substance is subjected to heat or combined with another substance in a test tube. Psychologists seek, among other things, to understand why individuals behave as they do in family or other social situations and to predict what will happen if certain changes occur. For example, to predict the effects of divorce on children. Some scientists seek not only to understand and predict events, but to control them as well. Not only to predict them, but to control them. Chemists want to control the substances they work with so that they can develop useful new substances, such as the various synthetics now used in clothing, automobiles, houses, and a host of other manufactured goods. To a certain extent, some psychologists also look for ways to control human behavior, to direct or change it for the better, or at least to understand how it is controlled. Controlling behavior can be thought of as a third primary mission. We looked at two, and here's a suggested third mission: the controlling of behavior. This is especially true of those who devote their careers to treating people seeking to overcome mental and emotional problems. And this sounds as if it is bordering now on psychiatry. The psychiatry has come from psychology and medicine. And according to one psychiatrist, I just two of them, I was interfacing with. Psychiatry has to do with the study of the diseases of the mind. Diseases of the mind. Mental health professionals work to control the behavior of their clients by trying to alleviate problems such as an unreasonable fear of going out in public, inability to establish satisfactory sexual relationships, or alcohol abuse, or more generally, by trying to assist them in restructuring their lives and their outlooks. Psychologists also seek to understand what factors contribute to such problems. To such problems. But working with humans is far different from mixing chemicals in a test tube. Of course, it's far different. Humans, test tube is lifeless. The possibility of controlling human behavior raises thorny questions of ethics and social policy. Control human behavior. Yes, some people are repulsed by the idea, the thought of controlling people, remaking people. Those psychologists often have mixed feelings about whether control of behavior should be considered a third primary goal of their science. Some psychologists have argued that human behavior is always under some kind of control. The control of parents and school systems over children, the control of nations' laws over the business world, and that it would be better to have such control exercised in a scientific fashion by scientists dedicated to improving the human condition. It would seem as if the professors here are they use the APA writing manual. Well, psychology uses that, and I realize sociology uses it as well. The APA. Most psychologists, however, shun the responsibility and the dangers of abuse inherent in general efforts to manipulate and control human behavior, believing that such efforts should be restricted to situations in which an individual freely consents to being controlled or engages in behavior that makes control essential for public good. We're going to look briefly at related fields, related fields. Psychology is one member of a family of sciences called the behavioral and social sciences. Family of sciences. The behavioral and social sciences. Yes, it is one of the social sciences. Understanding human behavior requires that psychologists study not only individual people, but also other facets of human functioning, from the activity of individual brain cells to the social and cultural settings in which people function. Thus, the subject matter of these sciences ranges from the neurochemical bases of memory and mental disorders to the dynamics of global commerce and international conflict. Such a broad perspective is necessary because humans are continually thinking about and affected by what is happening in the world around them. Thus, for example, the equality of a person's sleep can be affected by a news story about an armed conflict on the other side of the world in which a son or daughter is involved, just as that son or daughter is no doubt affected by knowledge of the parents' worries. Some scientists who work in the behavioral and social sciences, some scientists who work come from the field of physiology, the study of the biological functions and activities of living organisms. Physiology. You see the number of sciences there are. Some natural, some social, and the board and the interlink. Natural sciences and social sciences interlink. Sciences interlink. They do interlink. Then there's neuroscience, the study of the nervous system and of relationships between brain activity and behavior. Others are involved in such seemingly different areas as the study of cognition, mental and intellectual processes, including memory. And motivation, the why of behavior. In turn, their endeavors often incorporate knowledge from fields such as genetics. Genetics has to do with the study of hereditary mechanisms and of cellular functioning at the molecular level. Molecular, from the word molecule level, and biochemistry. biochemistry. The biochemistry and biochemical. The behavioral and social sciences also include anthropology, and it is subdisciplines and its subdisciplines such as physical anthropology, the study of the evolution of humans with emphasis on physiology. So physiology is not the same as physical. Physiology has to do with how the body works. And cultural anthropology, the study of different cultures and ethnicity. Sociology, so you see it interlinks with sociology. So anthropology has one of the subdisciplines of anthropology is physical anthropology. And then another is physiology and cultural anthropology. The study which cultural anthropology has to do with the study of different cultures and ethnicities. And it also interlinked with sociology, the study of large-scale social institutions and social problems, linguistics, education, economics, and political science. Finally, the interest of psychologists and psychiatrists, mental practitioners who specialize in mental and behavioral disorders, frequently overlap. Yes, they overlap. They overlap. They all overlap. So that is how I have been able to. Um, I was privileged and honored to study the different sciences. I studied anthropology. I've studied some level of physiology, sociology, psychology, and so on. They're interlinked. Although psychology represents a distinct field, the areas of study that psychologists focus on are so varied that they often maintain a close connection with many of their siblings in the behavioral and other social sciences. They maintain a close connection with many of their siblings, their relatives, their brothers and sisters. For example, psychologists exploring the role of heredity in intelligence might work in concert with geneticists, 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 and those studying, however, schooling affects children might collaborate with education specialists in working with other professionals. Psychologists seek not only to draw from other disciplines, but to contribute to them as well. But what is common to all psychologists is an interest in the study of behavior, and increasingly over the past couple of decades, the behavior of the whole organism as opposed to isolated aspects. That is, psychologists now recognize that the distinct areas of the brain and other part of the body and the mental functions they give rise to must be viewed as an integrated whole if complete explanations of behavior are to be developed. Okay, we have to break here for now, and I encourage you to do your reflection and email me. It would be good to do psychology and sociology together. It would make the study of both easier. To do them at the same time, it would be good.